Tá? Nada, Omar. 음, 아주 경제도시장 부가름지 총수 이름부지다.
I would like to wish the Chungse Rinpoche, the Chungse Boka Rinpoche, and Kempo Lododon Rinpoche, as well as all of the Kempos, lamas, and spiritual friends from the monasteries and nunneries, all of the students, and especially the nuns from the nunneries, and all of my Dharma friends, male and female, who are listening over the webcast. I'd like to wish you all my welcome this morning. So today is the last day of our Arya Chema spring teachings. So for the last month, we have been speaking about the autobiographical verses, good deeds, and the praise search therapy, and we've had this wonderful opportunity. But I've not been able to teach the entire good deeds or teach it thoroughly as I'd originally planned. But I've had the opportunity to go into a certain degree of depth on the passages I've spoken about, so I'm very pleased about that. And so I am ready to teach the rest of these texts next year, and I also would like to do so. But of course, we cannot say definitely what time it will be next year, what the dates will be next year, but it'll probably be like this year after the Tibetan New Year. Now, the main purpose for teaching the liberation story of Mikyo Dorje this year for many years, I've hoped that all the listeners, and in particular all the lay and monastic followers of the Karma Kamsang and the monks and nuns Shedra students, all will have a greater understanding, familiarity of Mikyo Dorje's examples and deeds of body, speech, and mind, rather than just an oral understanding of that. And so I've hoped that they will be able to by teaching these liberations of the body, speech, and mind, I think they'll have a better understanding and greater familiarity with this. And so this is what I've hoped for the teachings, and this has been my aims as well. Whether we are speaking about a guru's liberation story, an ordinary person's biography, whichever it is, this shouldn't be just for the sake of learning about a particular individual's situation and way of thinking. Instead, we should try to have a mental image of the whole world at that time and understand what that person's situation was like, because I think it's important for us to try to develop this. But for someone like myself, I haven't really specifically studied history, and the bit of history I know is just a little bit of bits and pieces from here and there. It's not a complete understanding. But over many years, I've read many different writings by Lord Mikyo Dorje. This has been a great fortune, and because of that, I feel for myself that I feel close to the world in which Mikyo Dorje traveled. So I think that when I've taught this liberation story, I think that many of the events I've described have been like news to all of you, new situations. For me personally, I feel that teaching the liberation stories this year has helped me develop even greater faith than I had before through knowing the reasons. Faith in the growing karmapas, and the eighth karmapa in particular. Particularly when we look at the situations that happened and events that happened during Mikyo Dorje's lifetime, there's a lot to see there. And so I have a particular feeling that comes from that. To give an example of this, when the eighth karmapa was first recognized, there's the east and the welcome tulkus, and there's that big dispute over the tulkus. There were many amazing signs that accompanied his birth, and so forth, but still, there were people who doubted whether or not he was actually the karmapa. And because of his karma, in the end, Mikyo Dorje had to stay in the community that included the most people who had doubted him, which was the Great Encampment, with the title of Karmapa. And at that time, most of the people in the Gacha encampment had been supporters of the Western Tulku. And so Mikyo Dorje, they really had great doubts that Mikyo Dorje was actually the Karmapa. And in the end, he had to stay in that community of the most doubters. And even when they finally enthroned him, it was like a last resort for the leaders of the encampment. I really wondered, did they actually want to enthrone him? So at that time, because the Kampas who were in the same region from Mikyo Dorje said that he's the actual Karmapa, and so if you don't do it, we're going to attack you, they said. And they were so afraid that they enthroned him, as it is said, right? Even after he was enthroned, though, his greatest supporter in the encampment was Gyaltsab Rinpoche, but Gyaltsab Rinpoche suddenly passed away in a way that we suspect was murder by poisoning. And there were many authentic Karma Kansan gurus, such as Sanya Nyempa Rinpoche, but all they could do was offer the Karmapa teachers. And there wasn't anyone who was actually able to change the situation within the encampment. So if we look at it from one perspective, from the time he was young, Mikyo Dorje had to live under other people's suspicions and disparagement and threats and criticism. And since he had to stay in that situation, if he were an ordinary individual, he would have become meek and weak-hearted, or someone who always only did whatever people told him to do. So it's a danger that would have happened to him. Or even in the worst situation, there was a danger he would have developed psychological problems, as we talk about today, anxiety disorders. What's the other name? I don't remember that is. There's a danger he would have had psychological difficulties. But even though he was in that situation, in that environment, his ability to stand for himself was as firm as a mountain. His resolve was like unstoppable, like the flow of a river. Not only that, he also was able to tear down the iron walls of bias and cast off unnecessary material things and hoist the banner of teachings and practice, leaving a treasure of teaching and writing. And so the legacy he left is the largest and broadest legacy that left by any of the Gyawan Karmapas, and the traces of his deeds are unerasable. If you think of it like someone for myself, when I was young, I have no idea what was going on, but I was recognized as being the incarnation of the Karmapa. And then I fell right into the middle of a huge controversy about who was the Karmapa's reincarnation. And put in a very difficult political situation, encountered many never-ending difficulties. So I think if you wonder what I've learned from teaching this liberation story of Mikyo Dorje, and what particular feeling and what particular things I've learned from looking at this in detail, well, for me, what the liberation story of Mikyo Dorje teaches is that regardless of whatever someone else says or what I think about whether I am in the or not the Karmapa, if I have a lot of thoughts and if I have a lot of hopes and fears in my mind, then I should not become a slave to those hopes and fears. Instead, I don't need to use up my entire life worrying about an empty title. And instead, I need to do what I can to arouse some pure motivations from my very heart. Even if all I can do is shoulder even a small portion of the burden of Buddhism and sentient beings, I think that I will not be mistaken in the path that I travel. And I think that Mikyo Dorje's life story gives evidence of that. So I feel that the liberation stories of the masters of the past, and in particular the life story of Mikyo Dorje, really show me a path forward in this life, a way in this lifetime. And so I think that's what it shows me. And so the teaching, this liberation story, is not just teaching it to you, but also looking inside myself and developing some experience or some understanding. And so I think that is what has happened with me. So for this reason, I feel that I'm extremely fortunate from the bottom of my heart. I think this. So next I would like to speak about the remaining points in this discussion of the Karma Gadri style that we spoke about yesterday. Now, when the Karma Gadri style was founded, there were two famous artists. One was Namkha Tashi and one was Gyaltso Tulku Pende. So these days it's said that the Tulku Pende from Epo was an art teacher of Namkha Tashi. But it's not really well known whether he was a founder of the Gadri style. But when we look at the Light of the Great Sun by Rinchen Drupcho, which I quoted yesterday, on the liberation stories of the Karmapas and their hot stuns and other related histories, then I think we can get a clearer picture that at the time that the Karma Gadri style was established, that Tulku Pende was an important personage in the establishment of the style. Likewise, from the Golden Garden of Kadri biographies by Sutta Pema mentioned, there is a story about the latter Sutta Chugye Jasan. There were two, and so this is the latter Chugye Jasan. And so what this says is that Sutta Chugye Jasan had a temple built at Yermoche that had 150 columns, and it was a very large shrine room. And the foyer with 8 columns. And the murals in this temple were painted by Tulku Pende and Sebum Tende and others. And these depicted the 100 deeds, and they're based on descriptions by the Lord Chukyi Wangchuk. Somebody see the not all. Now, many of the murals at the Karmegun Monastery, the Yermiche Monastery, are not left, but there are some left from the Lama Lakang. And we think that these were painted by Tulku Pende. And so I'd like to show them to you. So these are the old murals in the main shrine at Karma Monastery. So in 1918, when Kadositu was traveling to central Tibet, he stopped at Karma Monastery. And what he said at that time was that the shrine at Karma Yum, which had 56 columns and murals of the Jataka tales, they were in the old Gadrip-style paintings. Now, these stories are the Jataka tales, but these are the murals in the Guru shrine room. So I think that we can hope that these were probably drawn by Tulku Pende. Also, there's a liberation story of the ninth Karmapa of the sixth Gyatso Rinpoche Japa Dundrup. Now, what it says in there is that after the ninth Karmapa passed away, the person who designed or who made the reliquary stupa of the eighth Karmapa was Tulku Pende. And also, what it says in the ninth, in the Golden Garland Kajabhagavad is what it says during the time of the previous Karma. There's no master artist, so the skilled artist from the Atatra was Tulku Pende. And so during that time, there was no master artist, so Tulku Pende just criticized the other one, saying there's no really good monastery. And said, in the future, they become a master that you don't need to worry about. And so that's the reason why the 10th Karmapa, Churin Dojo, became a very fine artist. Now, if we want to see a painting by the 9th Karmapa, a drawing of the paintings. See, these are the melodies of the Mahakala Puja. They have really nice little drawings, right? They're nice drawings, but if a skilled artist look at them, they're like a child's drawings. Of course, they're nice, but if an expert looked at them, they'd be like a child's drawings. And so he didn't really know how to draw, and so for that reason, Tulku Pende and so forth criticized him for this. And what this shows to us is that Tulku Pende was very familiar with the 9th Karmapa Wangcha Dorje. Because he was so familiar, he was able to criticize them. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able. He was able to do this. Otherwise, he would not have dared criticize the 9th Karmapa. And so this shows that he was an artist who was really very close to the 9th Karmapa Wangchuk Dorje. Also, if we look at the autobiography of Sita Panchen, it says there was a painting of the 8 close sons by Tulku Pende, and which he saw. And on the back there's a person who made the design. The sketch for it was so he had an attendant of his make a copy of that, and had some other artists color it in. And so we can see that, but we are not able to identify we are able to. Okay, so the original by Tulku Pende is one that we cannot see, but we do have the copy of this, so I'd like to show you that copy. So it's probably this. Of course, there are many different ones, but so this is the. So for these reasons I've mentioned, the Yata Tulku Pende, regardless of whether he originally painted in the Mandri style, later he established and held the Gadri style and became one of the primary Gadri style painters. I think it's unnecessary to mention this. But unless we can actually see Rather, to determine what the differences are, the distinctions between the paintings, between his paintings and Namkatashi's, I think unless we actually see an actual painting of his, it's difficult to say. But I think that we can say that his technical skills were probably equal to those of Namkatashi. So now I'd like to speak about Namkatashi. Namkatashi recognized him. Mikio Dorje recognized Namkatashi as his own emanation. And so we recognized him as his own emanation. And for this reason, not only did he become highly skilled in artistic techniques, he also became one of the leaders in establishing the Gardri style, as we do not need to mention. In particular, he was treated very well and very kindly by the Karmapa and his Satsans. And he worked on many projects as an artist and as a supervisor. To give an example of this, if we look at the Golden Garland of Karma biographies, in the biography of the fifth Karmapa, fifth Shamar, which it says on the way to Tantang at Patmutse, there was a copy of a Mintang, of a Sitang, of an old Chinese painting. And at the base of that, so there is an amazing story of the deeds of the picture by the deeds of the Buddha by Mentamba. And so the ninth Karmapa told him to wrote that, and Namkatashi wrote that, and they placed that one by that painting by Namkatashi was put in the center, and then on either side there were the words of the 12 deeds of the Buddha and the qualities of removal and ripening of the Buddha that were written. They were written on the silk they was written in gold on silk and put on either side of the tanka. So as the first person who had him start the Gardhi style was Shamar Kuncha Yenlak, and the Shamar Rinpoche also had him many paintings. So I think he must have been very close to the ninth to the fifth Shamar. Also, the biography of the ninth Karmapa by Gyaltsab Drapa Dundrat wrote that in 1582 he went to the Serpo Chukangong, which later would become the residence of Gyaltsab Nimbu Rinpoche, and became the residence of many of the Gyaltsab Rinpoches. And the person who wrote the murals in that shrine was Tulku Namkatashi. Also, what it says in that biography, it says that in 1583, when the fifth Shamapa passed away, the reliquary stupa was made out of silver, and the person who supervised the construction of the reliquary stupa was Namkatashi. So that is recorded in the history. Likewise, when the ninth Karmapa Wangchuk Dorje was young and studying the philosophical texts, they gathered many of the young students, intelligent people. So the reason why he was called, so he was included in the, so he was called a kusho. Now this Tibetan word is mean kuko. Now this is called this because he was someone who was in the so he was called that because in the entourage of Karmapa, it means near the Karmapa. And so then he founded a monastery called the Kusho Omin Ling Monastery, and this was founded in 1591. And when he founded this, then Namkatashi was was told to paint the tankas of the lineage master. So there are many different tankas. And at the time that he was told to do this, it took him 8 years to do all the paintings. And in 1599, he was able to make an offering of these lineage tankas of the unified lineage to the 9th Karmapa Wangchuck Dorje. Now, Kusho Omin Ling is today. So where is that these days? Today, it's in the Shitse city in the Ringpung district, in the Yungdar Drege Zhongsor. So there are the remains of the monastery there, and within the remains of that monastery, there are still some portions of the murals that can be seen to this day. So I think it is important for us to research these murals. And the reason for this is that at the time, this was monastery Yung Omin Ling was built during the time of the initial establishment of the Karma Gadri style. So I think it's a way that if we want to know what the original characteristics of the Gadri style were like, we should look at that. So I'd like to show you a picture of the murals, of the remains of the murals from this monastery. Yun Take this is the ruins that it used to be a very elaborate monastery. Later it just became like a farmhouse. Now the farmhouse has even been torn down, and all that is left are the walls. And there's no one who is really taking care of them. So the paintings are in danger of being destroyed and degrading. Likewise, there's a Lalung monastery in Lhojak. This Lalung monastery had murals of the 9th Karmapa surrounded by the Kagyu gurus, and so these very clear. This is written by Namkha Tashi. I say they were in the Gadri style, so they could have been painted by either Namkha Tashi or Kunju Pende. Perhaps they were done by another artist at the time of the 9th Karmapa. But these, I think it is important for us to also research these murals as well. So I'd like to show you these murals from the Lalung Monastery in Lhojak. And so these are the main murals with Wangchuck Dorje in the middle. Now, recently, what has been recently discovered in recent times are in Lhotat Nyige Monastery in Bhutan. And so this is where there's a branch of the Trangpa Monastery there. And so that's the Lhotat Nyide Monastery. That was the seat of Shamar Kunchuk Yanlak. And the place where this monastery, and so that is place of the Kashut. So there are some old tankas paintings of the Kagyu lineage, and Kata Sutta described in his description of the place. He said that there are 25 paintings of the Kagyu lineage masters in the old Gadri style written during the time of the Shama Rinpoche. And he describes the silk brocade frames and so forth around them. And so there are amazing drawings that were just had there was none that could compare to them. And so these paintings I think we can determine that these were probably done during the time of the 5th Shamar Rinpoche Inlung. And there's a good hope, or a good chance, that the artist was Namkha Tashi, because, as I mentioned, the person who directed the establishment of this was Kunchuk Yanlak, and because he also had Namkha Tashi paint many paintings, and so this kind of painting these paintings are probably among the oldest remaining paintings of the Karma Gadri standards. So these are like a really important family, the ancestral jewel of the Kamagadri style. And so these are something that we need to research, and we need to, I think we need to study and research these painters. And so I would like to now show you the murals from the Nide Monastery in Hlochak. So there are two of them here that I'd like to show you. Now the paintings are, it's like the coloration is discredited because during the Cultural Revolution they were hidden in a cave, and so they got wet, and so for that reason they've degraded somewhat. And so that's a discussion of Tulku Pende and Lamka Tashi, an introduction to these two great masters who established the Karmagadri style. Now look what it says in the Great Light of the Sun is that during the time of the 10th Karmapa studied art with Tulku Tsurning from Chikyo and Lodrak in the tradition of Menlong, and he practiced that style in the first part of this. Later, he studied the Chinese styles and also the Kashmiri styles, and became a great artist who had no comparison in Tibet. Now, basically, what this is saying is that in Tibet, there was no one who was as skilled as him in poetry or art in Tibet. And that he said that he was someone who, was someone who had pleased Avalokiteshvara, and they had come to this world primarily to draw paintings. So he drew paintings, he also sculpted. And it said that every day he made a new painting or a new image every single day, without missing any. So these days, many foreign scholars who are studying the 10th Karmapa say that the 10th Karmapa, Chön Dorje, was one of the greatest of all Tibetan artists, and one of the most skilled of them. And there are many of his paintings that we could show. But today, just for an example of this, I'd like to show you this one of his paintings showing the Buddha taming the Maras or subduing the Maras. Actually, next year, I think I can speak about the 10th Karmapa Chön Dorje and his paintings, but I think that is enough for today. Then in 1664, Gyalpo Rinchen Dönchen, whom I mentioned yesterday, was born. What he did, his primary did, is he wrote this text, the Great Light of the Sun, that is a commentary on the form. So this is one of the oldest texts on the Gadri style that we have. It's about the proportions of deities. Now, among these descriptions of the proportions, there is an earliest ones were by Drogten Trungpa Pampa student Sunam Weser or Jamyan Drakpa of Tsao Rongpa. And there is also the flower mounted by Yenda Junior and Ripe Raje. And there's also the mirror for viewing reflections by Tsongkhapa students Tashi Tsotrim, the wish-fulfilling jewel of proportions by Menla Dundrup, and then the proportions of the deities, the mirror that shows the sutras and tantras by Tsang Tana Rikad Tulkupadan Lodra, the proportions by Taranata, the ocean of wealth creating images of body, speech, and mind by Taksan Lotsawa, and then also the Desi Sanya Jaso's text determining the proportions of deities. And also his great text on Dripat. Now this great painting said that there are actually two. There's one in U and one in Tsang, but these days we only have the one in U. The great painting in Tsang is probably missing. So this is a very old painting. This is probably the earliest, most elaborate of these such paintings. Later, there was many others. There was the designs of craftsmanship by Gio Margessi. So basically, when we look at so it's necessary for us to research all of these texts by these great masters of the path and to see how they flourished and understand their and see what their each individual features are. I think this is important for us to do. Now, there's an old tanka of the Gyatso Rinpoches done during the time of Gyatso Rinpoche. And I think this is probably done by Gyatso Rinchen Chotok. And the reason why I think this is because he was a student of the 6th Gyatso Nobudundra. And so this is an old. There are several old tomatoes several old paintings of the Gyatso, but the primary one is this one by Gyatso Nobru Sampa, of the Gyatso Nobru Sampa. And so this I will show you now, the 6th Gyatso Rinpoche Nobru Sampa. So this is the tanka of Gyatso Nobru Sampa. And I think this is probably written by Gelon Rinchen Sampa. In any case, these are among the oldest paintings in the Karmagati style. Now, in the 17th century, to the end of there was during the lifetime of the 3rd Kamo Kunung Tenzin, there was an artist named Chutashi. And he was one of the 3 Tashis, 3 great artists of the Gadri school. So he was one of these 3 Tashis. And he, on the description and the direction of Kunga Tenzin, he wrote a lineage talk as a Drupal Tashi of the Drupal Kaji lineage. And so I'd like to show you the first of this, so the one of Vajradhara. And so this is by the artist Chutashi of Jechu, the first lineage tanka of Vajradhara from the Drukpa Kaju lineage series by Chutashi. And then in the 18th century, there was Siddhartha Panchen, who was very well versed in all fields of knowledge. And in terms of artist, he had studied very thoroughly in the painting and so forth. And so he restored the previous Gari styles, and he helped propagate it. And so he had a very great influence on this. So I didn't have a lot of time to speak about this today, so I cannot say much about that today. So next year, I should probably begin to research this from now so that I can present this all to you next year. And so I think that is enough for me today. So next, I would like the organizers of the Ardachema Spring Teachings have a letter to read. So I'd like to ask you to please read that letter now. So now, we weren't able to hold the Ardachema Winter Dharma gathering, but as a substitute for it, they prepared to have these teachings on the autobiographical verses of Mikyo Dorje, and so this is organized by the nuns, and particularly those of the Palpam Yeshe Rabteng Ning. They have all taken the responsibility, and this teaching has now been completed very well in the beginning, middle, and end. And so I'd like to say make an auspicious connection with all of you. So I'd like to think that I'm very grateful and feel very thankful to all of you. In particular, Labada. Now, as I mentioned before, this year's teachings, the original plan was to finish the entire text, but I didn't finish it. And if I had just insisted on finishing, if I had not done it in detail, it wouldn't have worked out. So in the particular, I don't have a particular lineage or that is, I don't have the longer reading transmission of either of these texts. If I could just give the transition, so I could give it as a transition. So for the time being, I think we just need to leave it here, and next year I will continue speaking about it. Likewise, in recent times, the feeling that I've had recently is that in the past times, we had the Karma Gachen, that it didn't stay in one place, it went from place to place. To make connections with many people in various different related remote places. This is a method that was started by the previous Karmapas, and in these days, because of the technological advances in the world, it's not necessary to actually go to those places. We can go over the webcast and make connections with everyone all over the world. So for taking these times, the Garchen, the Great Encampment, is the website or the internet encampment. And so the internet encampment and doesn't need horses and pack animals and tents like we did before. These days, if you have a computer and a webcam, it's fine. So I think this is a really great opportunity. So from this year onward, I thought I shouldn't hide whatever my experiences and what I've understood. I shouldn't conceal them, but I should say teach as much as I can to you. And so, as I said the other day, I have the hope that we have a summer teaching. Now, we haven't been able to establish the dates, but once we have established the dates, then I will make an announcement to all of you. Likewise, in Chinese, I've thought that I should teach over the internet in Chinese, but I haven't been able to establish the dates. But the topic will probably be about the topic of mind training, or perhaps about the Vajrasplitta Sutra. But we haven't decided this in particular. In any case, normally, when I'm in India, I'm not able to go abroad, and the people from so there's no choice for the people from abroad but to come and see me. Likewise, when I was in India, the internet was not as good as it is now. But now the internet has really improved, and for that reason, if I can teach you whatever I can over the internet, there's no reason for you to come and see me and to spend all of the money, and you can listen to the Dharma while staying comfortably in your own homes, and that's good, isn't that? And so I think this is also a profit for you. It's also beneficial for you. So I think for this reason, my hope is that I can teach more Dharma this year. Now I don't have much else to say. I'm a little bit tired myself. Yes, I can't think of anything to say. My mind has just gone empty, and I don't have anything to say, so I think it's better to just leave it here. We will have a 20-minute break, and then we will get together, and we will all come together again. We will recite the rain of wisdom, the ocean of Kaju songs.